وسلم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم.
بسم الله
ثم
الرحمن
أما
الرحيم.
بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
عليكم السلام
بسم
ورحمة
الله
الله
تفضل.
وبركاته.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful. Prayers and salutations be upon our Master Muhammad, his family, companions. The book Jewels of the Quran by Imam al-Ghazali, may Allah have mercy on him. And the second type is knowledge of the kernel of the Quran. There are two degrees. The lowest degree is the knowledge of the three Quranic categories, namely as follows. The first category, the first is the knowledge of the narrations of the Quran and what concerns the prophets and those who deny God and His enemies. This kind of knowledge is held by storytellers, preachers, and some of the transmitters of traditions. This type of knowledge is not a universal need. The second is the knowledge of God's word. So Imam al-Ghazali says, may Allah have mercy on him, these are knowledge related to the kernel of the Quran. What we covered previously was that Imam al-Ghazali, may Allah have mercy on him, distributed the sciences with regards to the jewels of the Quran into five categories. Five of them were related to the surface level only, the peel, which is outside the kernel of the Quran, which is what he's referring to right now. So he said from the peel or the shell of the Quran, just to revise quickly, that the previous lessons when he mentioned with regards to the peel, the shell, like which was basically the sound, the tajweed, and the different types of recitations, that's just the peel. And then he mentioned the tafsir and exegesis, which is the part of the shell which is closest to the pearl. Today's lesson is a lesson with regards to the 21st night.
لأنه طبعا نحن في أيام لا نعمل فيها، ولكن ممكن يكون الدرس باسم الليلة 21. يقول الإمام الغزالي
Imam al-Ghazali, may Allah have mercy on him, says
في الطبقة السفلى من علوم اللباب. الآن
now he's referring to the knowledges with regards to the kernel itself, the pearl, which is the essence. So he says, so that too is of two types, the lowest degree and the higher degree. The lower degree is of two types. So Imam Ghazali now is entering into the kernel of the beginning or beginning to come into the pearl. So the lowest degree is of three types. The first is the knowledge narrated to the stories of the prophets, the enemies of God and His prophets, and this is a knowledge that storytellers and preachers have, but it's something that is not a universal need. So Imam Ghazali mentioned that from the gems or the jewels of the Quran is the presence or the existence of the stories of the Quran. So the stories of the Quran are it is the lowest level of the Quranic gems. Why? Because in these stories are messages from Allah. So any story from the Quran that Allah Azza wa Jal narrates in any of the chapters, even if it's a story that is repeated, even though the axiom is that there's no repetition in the Quran. There's nothing that
البعض
is
يقول طيب يا
repeated.
شيخ
Some people would say,
في
oh
آيات
Sheikh, but then there are
مكررة
verses that are
في
repeated.
القرآن بالحرف نقول ظاهرها مكرر
Apparently
لكن
it's
حقيقته غير
repetitive,
مكرر
but
لأن
the reality is
وجودها
that it's not,
في
because
تلك
its
السورة
presence in that
برقم
particular
كذا
chapter
على
with
وقت
that
معين
particular verse
لها
number
حكمة
in that particular place, it has a wisdom
ووجودها
behind it.
بنفس اللفظ في
And
في
and
سورة
and
أخرى
and its
بعدد
presence with the
معين أو
same
في آية رقم
words
معين
in another chapter with a
رقم
different
معين
verse number,
له
it
حكمة
has
في
a
ذلك
wisdom behind its place.
تمام فلا يسمى مكرر
So it is not called something.
قالوا
It's not something
والتكرار
repetitive.
المذموم هو الذي لا فائدة فيه
The
لكن
repetitive,
حينما نجد في القرآن
what is
يكرر مثلا
repetitive that
قصة
is
موسى عليه السلام مع
unnecessary
فرعون
is something
فنجد
that has
أن
no
في كل
benefit in it.
تكرار
And when
وفي
we
كل
read
سورة
the
وفي كل
mentioning of
حرف
Surah
وفي كل
Musa's,
لفظ
the Prophet Musa's story in the Quran in many places,
تمام
we find that in every
فمثلا
single place
في
it has
سورة
a wisdom.
الخير
So for instance,
يحدثنا سبحانه
in one of those
وتعالى
chapters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
عن سيدنا موسى عليه السلام
mentions
وبني
about
إسرائيل
Sayyidina Musa and the children of Israel,
تمام ثم آه، ما حدث يعني مثلا في سورة البقرة
or for instance what took
حدثنا
place
الله عز وجل
in Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah Azza wa Jal informs us about
في سورة البقرة عن فرعون وما فعله من
about
بني إسرائيل
Fir'aun and what he did with the children of Israel.
طيب تمام وفي سورة أخرى
And in another chapter,
في سورة الأعراف
in Surah
مثلا
Al-A'raf,
يحدثنا الله عز
Allah Azza
وجل
wa
عن
Jal tells us
فرعون
about Fir'aun
والكلام الذي كان يقوله
and his words that he would say
فمثلا في سورة
to the children of
البقرة
Israel. But in Surah
يقول
Al-Baqarah,
يذبح أبنائهم ويستحيي
it would just be
نساءهم
said what he did.
تمام
He would kill their children.
فرعون يسومونكم سوء العذاب يذبحون أبناءكم ويستحيون
He
نساءكم
would
في ذلك بلاء من ربكم عظيم وإذ فرقنا بكم بحرا هنا في
So
هذه الآية
in these verses of Surah Al-Baqarah,
فيها ذكر
it is the
منة
mentioning,
من الله عز
Allah is
وجل
mentioning the favor of
يذكرهم
Allah
بنعمة الله
Azza wa
تبارك
Jal
وتعالى
over the children of Israel.
في سورة
Allah is
الأعراف
reminding them of His
لا
favor. But in Surah Al-Araf, that's
في
not the
سورة
case.
الأعراف
In Surah Al-Araf,
يعطينا الله عز
Allah Azza wa
وجل
Jal
الحديث المباشر
is telling
ما
us
كان
the,
بين
the,
فرعون
the
وبني
dialogue that
إسرائيل
took place between Fir'aun and the children of Israel.
تمام على سبيل المثال يقول
For instance,
سبحانه وتعالى
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
على
says
لسان فرعون
uh,
قال
that
إن
Fir'aun
هذا
said
لمكر مكرتم في
that this is
المدينة
something that you've been plotting in the cities.
فلأقطعن
So I will cut
أيديكم
your
وأرجلكم
hands and your feet,
ولأسلبنكم
and I will chastise
ثم
you.
لأصلبنكم أجمعين نجد في سورة أخرى
In another chapter we find,
يقول ولتعلمن في سورة
and then
طه ولتعلمن
and you would
أينا
know
أشد عذابا وأبقى
who is more severe in his punishment and who is
فهنا
more everlasting. That's what
نجد
Pharaoh
أن
said.
الآيات
So we see in these
المحتوى
verses,
العام
the general
هي
summary
قصة
is
واحدة
it is
المحتوى
about a one
لكن التفسير
story, but the details
الأولى
are
هي
different.
ذكر المنة
In the first one, it's
الثاني
mentioning
فيها
Allah's favor.
الحديث
The second
المباشر
one
الذي
is the
تم بين
mentioning of the
فرعون
dialogue that took place between Pharaoh and
وبني إسرائيل
children of Israel.
الآية
The third
الحديث الآخر
and the other dialogue
في سورة
in
طه
Surah Taha,
بين لنا
Allah is clarifying to us
رد السحرة
the response of the
لفرعون
magicians to Fir'aun.
كيف ردوا عليه
How did they respond to Fir'aun?
وماذا ترتب على
And
ردهم
what
من الله
led
عز وجل
to
سبحانه وتعالى
what
إذن
led from that
فيقول هنا
from Allah Azza wa
القصة
Jal based on their
معرفة
response.
قصص القرآن الكريم ثم قال
Then he says
وهذا علم لا تعم إليه الحاجة
that this type of knowledge is not a
لماذا؟
universal
لأن
need.
ضرب الأمثلة
Why? Because
يحتاج في بعض الأحيان
examples are set or required
وبعض
in
الأحيان لا
some
يحتاج إلى ضرب
type.
الأمثال
In some
كيف
situations,
هذا؟
but in some situations you don't
قالوا
need to strike those
لأن ضرب
examples.
المثل
Why?
يحتاج إلى صنف من الناس
Because
لكي
to
يفهم
strike those examples, you need a type of people who could
بعض الناس
understand
مثلا
those examples
مهما
or those
شرحت له
similitudes. Some
ومهما
people,
وضحت
no
له
matter how much you
لن
explain
يفهم
to them,
ولن يدرك
they would not understand
المغزى من هذا الكلام
the
إلا
the
بمثال
the they won't understand
إلا
a
بمثال
situation except if
وهذا
somebody gives them
يدخل
a
فيه
parable.
عموم الخلق
And this is the general population.
الخلائق فيهم عموم وفيهم
In
خواص
the general
وفيهم عقلاء
population, you have the general
وفيهم
public, and then
علماء
you have the elect.
وفيهم أهل
You have people of
فهم
of understanding. You have people of the ulama. So you find, this is why we find in the Quran, when the parables are mentioned in the Quran, or these stories are mentioned, it's mentioned for the people. So what is intended by that is that the general populace, the awam, but is all of the population referred to as awam? No. There's no country or place except that there is the general population, and then there's the elect, then there's those who are cultured, and then there's those who are ulama. So the awam, the general population, requires these kinds of stories, parables. So we find we're referring to all of us require being addressed by the Quran, whether we are from the awam, the general population, or from the elect, or the ulama, or the poets, or whatever type we would be, or the specialists in their knowledge or in their wisdom. We cannot say that I am not in need of this story. This is referring to only the general population, basically. The second type, he says, the second is the knowledge of God's word with those who are ungrateful, and his disputation with them. Knowledge of theology comes in this category. This knowledge is to discredit errors and heresies. Habib mentioned one. So what is intended by these words? Imam Ghazali is telling us that the mentioning of these stories in the Quran is for a group of people who need it when they are orating, and when they are addressing the people. Like who? Like the teachers, the preachers, those who call people to Allah Azza wa Jal, the one who gives the Friday sermon. There are people who are following him, and they listen to his address and his speeches. This person requires knowing these stories. Why? Because whoever is present in his gathering, the majority of them would be the common folk, and most of the people are the common folk, and most of the Muslims. And this is why they're referred to as the people of the right. There's a group of them from the early generation, and a group from them from the later times. So for this reason we say, oh, you who are a preacher or a teacher or a caller to Allah, or someone who's in the media, or someone who has followers who listen to you, then if you read the Quran and you pass by stories of the Quran, then you need to stop and reflect over them, because you need them. You need these stories. I will give you an example. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam.
الله مر به موقفان عجيبان.
Two events took place before him which are really strange. Well, first one was with, or which were amazing. First one was with Nimrod, and the second one was with his uncle. The addresses were different. The dialogue was different. So Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam with Nimrod, Allah Azza wa Jal said in the Quran, do you not see the one who debated Ibrahim about his Lord? When Ibrahim alayhi salam said that Allah, my Lord, is the one who gives life and gives death, and then Nimrod replied, said, I give life and give death too. Sayyidina Ibrahim did not say to him, prove to me that. There was a wisdom behind that. Why? Because if he were to say, prove to me, it would it would it would lead to Nimrod killing someone, and then he would say, look, I killed someone. So that would lead him to another problem, which is if he were to say, prove to me that you can give death. So he said, I can give life and give death. And then Ibrahim a.s. said, okay, well, Allah can bring the sun from Allah brings the sun from the east, so bring it from the west. So then he got dumbfounded. So these examples, why did Sayyidina Ibrahim choose the sun? Because he had a previous experience with the sun and the moon and the night. When the night came and he saw the planets, and he said, this is my planet, this is my God. But then when the planet went away, he said, this is not my this cannot be my God, because my God is ever present. Then the whole story, and the same thing happened when he saw the sun. He said, this is my God because this is the biggest. And then when the sun set, he said, my God is not that. So he had already an experience with the planets and creations. So this is why he asked Nimrod about the same thing which he reflected over before. So he said, then bring the sun from the as for his dialogue with his uncle Azar, what did he say to him? He said, oh, my dear uncle, why do you worship that which does not see and hear? It has come, knowledge has come to me that has not come to you. So follow me and you will be guided onto the right path. So this is debating with knowledge. Oh, my dear uncle, don't worship the devil. The devil was disobedient to Ar-Rahman. Oh, my dear uncle, I'm afraid that you might be afflicted with a punishment, from Ar-Rahman. So he's mentioning punishment, but from who? From Ar-Rahman, the most merciful, the most gracious. Look how does it befit to use the word punishment with Ar-Rahman? There's no comparison. Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. It is more encompassing than Ar-Rahim. It is the one who gives all of the blessings and gifts. So it doesn't befit to say this is the punishment of the most merciful. It would actually make more sense if someone were to say the punishment of the avenger, the punishment of the compeller. This is the punishment of the one who is severe in his punishments. This is the punishment of the one who is severe in his vengeance. But he said punishment from Ar-Rahman. He's trying to bring forth a banquet of beauty as much as he could. So if his uncle were to think that how can there be a God that is most merciful and he punishes? So for this reason, Habib says that the preachers and the teachers and those who teach their children at home, that if you were to pass by a story in the Quran, then stop there and take the meanings properly, because Allah is trying to give you a message so that you can then use that message as an example for the people you're calling to Allah Azza wa Jal. The second is the knowledge of God's word with those who are ungrateful and his disputation with them. Knowledge of theology comes in this category. This knowledge is to discredit errors and heresies against Islam and to eliminate doubts. This knowledge is held by theologians. This knowledge can be understood through two levels. We have explained the lower level in the epistle from Jerusalem, and the higher level is in belief. This knowledge is to guard one's religious belief from what the heretics say. However, This kind of
ولا
knowledge does
يكون
not
هذا
center
العلم
on intuitive knowledge of
معمولا
realities.
بكشف
This kind of
الحقائق
knowledge was used in
وبجنسه يتعلق
incoherence of the
الكتاب الذي
philosophers,
سنتلوه
تهافت
في
الفلاسفة,
تهافت
in
الفلاسفة والذي
mustahziri
أوردناه
and
في
the proof
الرد
of
على
the truth
الباطنية
and
في
fragments, which are names
الكتاب
of his books,
الملقب
and the explanation of
المستظهري
disagreement on
وفي
principles
كتاب
of
حجة
religion.
الحق وقواسم الباطنية
This knowledge makes
وكتاب
use of logic by which
مفصل
one learns
الخلاف في
the
أصول
means
الدين
of debate,
ولهذا العلم
that is,
آلة
the method of
يعرف
disputing
فيها
by true
طريق
argument. We
المجادلة
discuss them in the
بل
touchstone
طرق
of
المحاجة
reflection, which is
بالبرهان
another name of his
الحقيقي
book, and in the
وقد
standard of
أودعناه
knowledge, another
كتاب
book. The
محك
discussion is
النظر
such as not to be
وكتاب
found in
معيار
works of
العلم
jurists or
وعلى
theologians.
وجه
Whoever is
لا
not familiar
يلقى
with these two
مثله
books will
للفقهاء
not be aware of
والمتكلمين
what doubt or
ولا
arguments these
يصف
are.
بحقيقة الحجة والشبهة من لم يحط بهما علما.
نعم. يقول الإمام
So
الغزالي
Imam al-Ghazali, may Allah have mercy on him,
في علم اللباب
saying that from the
وهو
knowledges of
علوم
the
القرآن
essence or the kernel of the
التي
Quran,
تعتبر داخلة في العلم الأصلي. قال الآيات
he said the verses
التي فيها الجدال
in which
مع
there is the
مع المنافقين
there's the
مع
debate against the disbelievers
الجاحدين
and
مع
the hypocrites
الملحدين
and the rejectors
نجد
and the
أن
ingrates.
القرآن جادلهم
Ingrates. So we find that the Quran debates them and refutes them in many of the verses.
وأمرنا
And Allah ordered
أن
us
نجادل أهل الكتاب
to
بالتي هي
debate
أحسن
the people of the book with that which is
بالتي هي أحسن.
most nice or most
كيف
excellent.
أحسن؟
How can it be
يعني
ahsan, the
مثلا
word that is
نجد
used?
في القرآن
Like
الكريم
for instance, we find in the
أن
Quran,
محاجة الكفار ومجادلتهم
Allah says,
لا تعني
when you debate with the
السب
disbelievers, it does not mean
أو
you curse and slander
استحقار.
or you belittle them,
تمام. بخلاف ما هم يفعلون.
despite they might be doing the same.
لذلك مثلا الحبيب صلى الله عليه
So, for instance, the
وسلم
beloved
عليه
sallallahu
الله
alaihi wasallam,
حينما كان في مكة
when he
المكرمة
was in Mecca,
ماذا فعل؟
what did he do?
حينما طبعا كانت الأصنام
When he saw
365
that there
سنة
were 360
موجودة في
idols
الكعبة.
inside the
أولا
sacred the
أهم
Kaaba,
شيء أنه لم يكسرها.
the first thing is that he did not break them.
متى
When
تكسرت
did
الأصنام؟
he
يوم
break
الفتح.
the idols? On the day of
نشوف
the great Fath.
يوم الفتح. فكان هذا واحد لم يكسر النبي صلى الله عليه
The
وسلم
Prophet ﷺ did not break the
هذه
idols
الأصنام لأنها
because
ليست وقتا لكي
that was not
تكسر.
the time for them to be broken.
أول شيء لابد أن تكسر في أدمغتهم
Firstly, you need to break the idols in the minds of the people who exalt them. But as long as the idols are exalted in the minds of those people and you would go and break those idols, they would do
يردوا إلى أنفسهم كرامتهم.
whatever they could to revenge or take vengeance for what they see as something that is lofty. So the Prophet ﷺ at that time did not break them, firstly. The second thing, he was praying towards the Kaaba while there were idols inside the Kaaba. There are people who were praying towards the idols while the Prophet ﷺ was praying towards the Kaaba. The third thing, that the Prophet ﷺ did not curse any idol like the way they were falsely accusing him of doing, because the Quraysh went to his uncle Abu Talib anhu, and he was saying that your nephew is cursing our idols, while the Prophet ﷺ did not do any of that. Rather, what he did was he only asked them a question: how do you worship? What do you create with your own hands? You, this statue, you are the one who created it. Shouldn't it be the other way around? The statue worshipping you. I mean, we're not going to say that, but how can there be a God that is created? So you have become like the creators of, you create your own gods. So how? So the Prophet ﷺ was just asked them a question: how do you worship that which you create? Which is similar to what Sayyidina Ibrahim said to his people. How do you worship that which you create with your own hands, and Allah is the one who created you and your actions? And also, do they hear you? This
هبل
statue,
واللات
like
ومنات
Hubal and Lat
والعزى
and
هل
Uzza,
تكلمكم؟
do they
هل
speak to
ترد
you?
عليكم؟
Do they
هل
respond to you?
تتكلم؟
Do they speak?
هل تتحرك؟
Do they
سؤال
move?
طيب أجيبوني.
There's a question.
فقالوا إن محمدا
But
يسبك
in response, they said to say,
سبحان
they
الله.
said to Abu Talib that
يعني
Muhammad
هم
sallallahu alaihi wasallam,
عرفوا
Muhammad
أنها
is
لا تتكلم
cursing
ولا ولا
our
تتحرك
gods. They
ولا
knew that these gods
ولا
don't
غير
respond
ذلك.
and they don't hear and they don't do anything of that sort.
سبحان الله. فلذلك نجد أن
So for
القرآن
this reason, we find in the
حينما
Quran that when the Quran
يجادلهم
debates them,
بما يعتقدون
he debates them,
وبما
the Quran
يفكرون.
debates them according to what they believe
وسبحان
and what
الله
they're thinking.
نجد
And we find
هذه فائدة
this benefit,
استفدتها من
and
القرآن
Habib
الكريم
benefited
في
himself from the
الجدال
Quran when it comes to
حتى يرد
debate,
حتى على شياطين
that it can
الجن.
even respond to the
شياطين
demonic
الجن
jinn,
سبحان
the
الله.
satanic jinns,
نجد
their
أن
responses to
الكفار حينما
refute them.
يجادلون
We find when the disbelievers
يتوقفون عند مسألة
debate, they
أإذا
stop
متنا وكنا ترابا وعظاما
at the
أإنا
point where it says
لمبعوثون.
that if you were to die and then return to dust,
كان هذا
can we
أكثر شيء
come
إذا
back
متنا
to existence? This was the
كيف
biggest thing in their heads, that if we
نرجع
die,
للحياة.
how can we
ما
come back to
كانت
life?
عقولهم تتصور.
Their
الله عز
minds could
وجل
not
جادلهم
conceive of it.
وخاطبهم
So
وأعطاهم
Allah
الجواب
responded to them and He
مليون في
gave
المية.
them a response that was 100%
ما هو
satisfying.
الجواب؟
What was the response?
قال قل الذي أنشأها أول مرة
The one who
وهو
created you the
قل
first
بكم الذي
time,
أنشأها أول
the
مرة
one who will bring you back to
وهو
life, is
بكم
the one who
خلقه
brought you
الذي
to
خلقها
life the
من
first
العدم
time, the one who created you from nothing.
وأوجدها من العدم
He
لم تكن
created
شيئا
you,
مفتوحا
you
أوجدها
were
من
nothing
العدم
before, you did not
ونفخ فيها
exist,
الروح.
and then He created you and blew into you the Spirit.
قال سبحانه وتعالى
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says,
الله أيحسب إنسان أن يترك سدى ألم
do,
يكن نطفة من مني
do you
يمنى
think
ثم كان
does the
علقة
human think that
خلق
he's just left
فسوى
like that?
فجعل منه
Was he
الزوجين
not a,
الذكر والأنثى أليس ذلك بقادر
a
على
drop
أن
of sperm
يخلق الذي
and turned into
خلقك
a
من
zygote, and then the whole creation is
وخلقك
mentioned,
مضغة وثم
that how it was converted from a
نطفة
zygote
ثم مضغة ثم
to
عظاما ثم
to
كسل
bones,
عظاما
and
ملقا
then the
ثم
bones were
ثم
covered with
نفخ
meat,
فيك الروح
and then
وأنشأ
the spirit was blown into
نفسا
you.
أخرى أليس ذاك القادر أن
Isn't the one who did all of that capable of bringing you back to life? So as long as you're convinced that, or as long as you agree that you did not exist, so you, disbeliever or atheist, you cannot deny that you did not exist before. How old are you? 60 years? Before 60 years, where were you? You were nothing. You weren't anything. Do we agree to that? So who brought you to life then? Allah Azza wa Jal is telling us the stages of the birth, that how we went through all of these phases. Like how we created you, similarly you would return. So what we can see in the Quran, it debates with the disbelievers and completely refutes them or silences them. So when they could not respond, they just reject and they start saying you're a liar. So if you find a person having no proof except him saying you're a liar, then leave him. Just know that he's defeated. Any person you debate and he has no more proofs left, and he ends up just simply saying you're a liar, that means he's defeated and he's just being stubborn. Okay, if I'm a liar, then prove that I'm a liar. And this is what they said to the Prophet ﷺ. When they said, God forbid, that the Prophet is a liar, okay, come with a book similar to this. Come with 10 chapters that you come up on your own. Write down 10 chapters from the Quran. We're not expecting the entire Quran from you. Alright, one chapter alone. Write one chapter like the chapters of the Quran. Or just do one verse. This was the challenge.
إذا أنا كاذب
If I am a liar,
طيب تفضلوا
then prove.
ائتون ب10 سور مفتريات
Come with 10 chapters of your own,
بسورة من مثله
or a
لا
chapter
يفلحون
of like that,
بآية
or even a verse.
ما يستطيع
They won't be able
لئن
to.
اجتمعت الإنس والجن
It
على
says,
أن يأتوا
even if the humans and the jinns were to
بمثل
come
هذا
together
القرآن
to
لا
come
يأتون
with a
بمثله
Quran like this,
ولو
they
كان
could not
بعضهم لو
be
اجتمعوا
able
كلهم
to, even if they were
يتعاونون
all working
على
together
أن يصدروا
to
قرآنا
come
أو
up with the
سورة أو
Quran,
آية
or
ما
with the
يستطيعون.
chapter of it, or a
جمعنا
verse of it.
عقلاء العالم
If you were to bring together all of the scientists of the world and the great intellects and the think tanks and
المفكرين منهم
and the
إنس
thinkers
وجن
from
تعالوا
humans and jinns,
كلهم
bring them all
على أن يأتوا مثل هذا
to come
القرآن لا
with a
يأتون
book
بمثله
like
ولو
the
كان
Quran. They
بعضهم
cannot.
لبعض ظهيرا. أيضا
Also,
نقول
we say,
لمن يعيش مع غير المسلمين
whoever, for to those who
ومع
live
الملحدين.
with around
مثلا اليوم
non-Muslims
يعيش
and
أصلا
atheists. Unfortunately,
أعرف
nowadays,
اليوم الذي يقول لك أنا ملحد
those
ولكن
a lot of people you
ترى
find, they say that they're
هو
atheists,
محدد
but in the end they're actually just
ليست عن
followers.
عقيدة
They're not
إنما
rejecting based on
عبارة
belief.
عن
It's
شبهات
just some doubt that they
ووساوس
have, or
جاءت مع
whispers
صاحبه
that they
قرأ
got
في
by sitting
مقالة في
with some
الإنترنت
people, or they read
أو
an
تابع
article on
واحد
the
من يقول
internet,
أنا
or
ديني
or
كما
they
أنا
they they
موتى
follow some
ولكن
people
أحضر حسابات
who who
في
who
تويتر
who are on Twitter, who
فيقول
are
خلينا
atheists.
نشوف
And then there was one Twitter account,
خلينا
Habib
نشوف
just
هذا
by
الملحد
chance went
الذي
across.
الناس
He thought, okay, he's an
يعني
atheist. Let me see what he writes
يخافون
about. Who are
فدخلت
these
على
people
عدد
who
من
people
من
are
الموجودين
who
في
other Muslims are
حساباته
afraid of reading?
يا
So
جماعة
when
الخير
Habib went and read their
كلام
arguments, what they were
يعني
saying was
طفولي
was petty, was
كلام
childish,
كيف
was
انت
that
انا
how
استغرب لا استغرب
uh,
منهم بل استغرب من
Habib
المسلمين
was not
انهم كيف
confused
لم
about
يستطيعوا ان
them, but
يحاجوه
how Muslims cannot refute
تبين لي
them.
السبب شيء واحد فقط
And then Habib came with
ليس
one
شكا في
reason, and the only reason was
سبب
not
واحد
out of
فقط ما
doubt of
هو
religion. The
عدم
reason,
تدبر
the
القرآن
only reason was because people have stopped
من
reflecting and
تدبر
pondering over the
القرآن
verses of the Quran. Whoever reflects
بهذه
and
الطريقة
ponders
التي ذكرها
over the
الغزالي
Quran the way Imam Ghazali has
وخاصة
mentioned,
في
especially
معاني
when it
محاججة
regards
الكفار
when it's
والملحدين
regarding to
لن
the
يحتاج
verses where Allah
إلى
refutes the
أن يبحث
disbelievers,
وكيف
then
يرد عليه
he will
إلا في
not
بعض
be
المسائل.
in
نعم
need,
أكيد نعم
except
يحتاج
for
إلى
certain
في بعض
issues,
النقاط العقلية
to
يحتاج
because we
إلى
know that there's
المتخصصين أنا أقول أكيد
some certain
لكن على وجه
situations
العموم
you do need the specialists
كل ذلك
to
موجود
debate,
في
but in
القرآن الكريم
general all the arguments are mentioned in the
موجود
Quran.
في القرآن يعني أنا أعطيكم آية واحدة
And I'll
فقط
give you one verse in the Quran only.
يعني لو
If you were
تدبرناها
to reflect over
يستطيع
it, we would be able to
الإنسان
a person would be able
أن يرد
to refute
على
or
أي ملحد
respond to any atheist.
على أي ملحد يقول الله
Allah
سبحانه
Azza wa Jal,
وتعالى
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says,
أيحسب الإنسان أن لن نجمع عظامه
do humans think, or does a human think
بلى
that we will not
قادرين
bring
على أن
his
نسوي
bones
بنانه
back together? We are truly capable
بل يريد الإنسان
of doing
أن
that.
يفجر أمامه
What a human expects it to
وقال
happen
في
in
آية
front of him.
أخرى في
In
مسألة
another verse, Allah says,
عفوا ليس الآية
sorry, the verse that Habib was referring to,
في مسألة الزمن
with regards to the time.
طبعا جمع الله عز وجل للبنان جمع العظام هذه
Allah Azza wa Jal
من آيات القرآنية
gathering the bones together of humans. These are verses
حقيقة الأمر
from the Quran by which a human would know the reality of the affair, that the bones of a human
في داخله
inside of him,
تنمو
they grow,
تكبر
they get big in
هذا
size.
الطفل
This child or infant,
الذي كلنا كنا أطفال
all of us were
كيف
infants.
كانت عظامنا
How were our
صغيرة
bones? They were small,
لينة
soft.
هذا الإنسان
This man now, this human now,
ضخم
this is tall and big.
كيف كانت عظامه
How were his bones?
دعوا الإنسان
Okay, leave a human. Look at the animals.
كيف خلقت
How were the animals created?
كيف هناك العظم هذا
So this
ينمو
bone grows.
كيف ما سبب نموه
What is the cause of his growth?
الجسم
And with his growth, the body grows as well in complete balance.
يعني ما في شيء
It's amazing that there's nothing that is out of balance except where there's an exclude or exception, and behind that exception there is a divine wisdom from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what Habib is saying is that what silences the atheist most is in the creation of humans itself. In the creation of humans, you can prove by your own existence the existence of Allah, the oneness of Allah, and the knowledge of Allah. You and me, as from the human species, we, in us, Allah's divine names manifest, all of them, even the rigorous names, the compeller, the avenger, the one who brings to death. Every single day, there cells inside of you that die. In ourselves, the cells die. The hair that falls off, they die. Like how a leaf falls off from a dead leaf falls off from the tree. These hair that fall off from our head or from our beard or from the body in general, they're dead hair that need to fall off, and Allah has written for them death. So in you, so Allah has written, decreed that every single day part of your body dies, from your cells, from your hair. So even the name Mumit is in you. So this is an important thing. The second thing is the atheist, for instance, or the agnostic, or everything they say, we just believe in reason and intellect. Prove to me. So if you were to ask the atheist, if you were to say to him about today, what is today? Is it a Saturday, Sunday, Monday? They will say today is Sunday. What is the date then? The date is so and so. If he is a non-Muslim, he would say the Gregorian date. So he would say it is Sunday, and then we could ask him, well, how do you know today is Sunday? Who told you that? If you were to ask any person, how do you know it's Sunday? They would say, ask him, how do you know? It could be Wednesday, it could be Saturday. How? They could be wrong. What do you think? Maybe it's not 2021. Maybe they're tricking us. Maybe we're in 2040, for instance. Can this be the case? Prove to me, O atheist, that today is Sunday with a proof, with your mind and intellect. There won't be any proof except for they are saying, or people are saying. And then they also think that the world is just like that as well. So the whole world just came about just like that. And so there is no, as the Quran says, their hearts are empty. So the one who is not able to respond or refute the atheist from amongst the Muslims, then it is because you're not reflecting and pondering over the verses of the Quran. The third is knowledge of the legal ordinances that deal with wealth and women. These relate to one's life and reproduction of life. This knowledge is the knowledge that jurists attain, knowledge known as the issues of mutual relations. Another aspect relates to issues of marriage and reproduction, that is women. The aspect on crime deals with the restraint necessary for those who cause corruption to either life or reproduction. There is a universal need for this knowledge because it refers to the blessings of this world and the blessings in the world to come. Those who have this knowledge are known as preachers, storytellers, and theologians. A great
ولذلك
deal
رزق هذا
of
العلم
research
مزيد
has been
بحث
done
وإقناع
in this
على
area of
قدر
knowledge more
الحاجة
than is even necessary.
حتى
Many
كثرت
books
فيه
have been written
التصانيف لا
on the
سيما
subject,
في
particularly in
الخلافيات
regard to
منه
disputed
مع أن
problems,
الخلاف فيه
even though
قريب
disagreeing is allowed in
والخطأ
seeking
فيه غير
the truth.
بعيد عن
Whoever
الصواب إذ يقرب كل
strenuously
مجتهد من أن
endeavors
يقال
to
له
reason an
مصيب
issue may be
أو
close to
يقال
being right
إن
and
له أجر
earn one
واحدا وإن
reward
أخطأ
if he should make a
ولصاحبه
mistake.
أجران
His opponent is
ولكن
said to have
لما عظم
attained two
فيه
rewards
الجاه
because he is
والرتبة
correct. This
توفرت
kind of knowledge
الدواعي على
led
الإفراط
to
في
fame and
تقويته
influence.
وتصعيده
As a result, many were
وضيعنا شكرا
motivated
صالحا من
to
العلماء
develop
في
many
تحقيق
branches of
الخلاف
this
منه
knowledge. We wasted
وصرفنا
much of
قدرا
our life
صالحا منه
writing
إلى
books on
تصنيف
creeds and
المذهب
sorting them
وترتيبه
out
إلى
in the
إلى
simple.
بسيطا
These are names of books
ووسيطا
he's mentioning:
ووجيزا
the
مع إيجاد
Mediator, the
وإفراط
Wasit,
في
and Al
التشعيب
Wajiz.
والتفريع وفي
All this
القدر
served to
الذي
develop many branches
ابتدعناه
of this kind of
كتاب
knowledge.
خلاصة
What we
المختصر
put forward
كفاية
in the
وهو
book, the
تصنيف
essence of the
غاب
abridged
عنه
Khulasat
أسرار
al-Mukhtasar,
التصانيف
suffices.
ولقد كان الأولون يفتون في المسائل وما على
That is
حق
the fourth
أحسن
book of
منه
ours on this branch of knowledge
وكانوا
and the smallest of all these
يوفقون
works.
بالإصابة أو
Legal judgments
يتوسطون
were given on
ويصلون
problems by the
بعدهم
early generations,
فلا
but they did not cover
يستغرقون
any
جملة
more than what
الأمر فيه
this
بل
book contains.
يستفيدون
Correct
بالمدلول
judgments
وينقلون
were
ذلك
given
على
by them
غيرهم
through the grace of God, or
وهذا
they
وجه
suspended
شعار
judgment saying that they
الفقه
did not know.
القرآني
They did not devote
وتوليد
their
بين
time to this
فقه
knowledge.
القرآن
They were
والحديث
devoted to other
علما
forms of knowledge
وهذا
as they were
أصول
occupied
الفقه
with other things.
ويرجع إلى
Others
فقه
came to this
قوانين
knowledge. This is
الاستدلال
how the knowledge
بالآيات
of jurisprudence
والأخبار
branched
على
off from the
أحكام
Quran.
الشريعة
The principles of
ثم لا
jurisprudence,
أخفى عليك أن
usul
رأس
al-fiqh, developed from
اختصاص
the science of
الوقاض
jurisprudence, the
دون
Quran and the
الفقهاء
traditions. It has a
والمتكلمين
knowledge
الأعلام
devoted to the laws
يقتصرون
of
على
seeking
مجرد الفقه
decisions based on
ويتمكنون
divine
منه
law, on Quranic science,
ودرجة
and the
الفقيه
tradition.
والمتكلم
You should know that the
متفاوتة
degree or rank
ولكن
of the
حاجة
storyteller and preacher
المقصود
was below
الأعم
that of the jurists and
وإلى
theologians.
المتكلم
This is because the
أشد
storytellers and preachers
وأشد
are most often concerned
ويحتاج
with
إلى
tales
كليهما
of oral
لإيصال
tradition and similar
الحقيقة أما
kinds of
الفقيه
knowledge. Jurists and theologians are close to each
فكان
other in degree.
الاختصاصات
However,
بالمحاسن
there is a
والمناطق
universal
وأما
need for
المتكلم في
jurists and
ذات الله
even a more
والمعرفة
universal need for
حاجة
theologians.
مبادرة
Both fields
فلا
are needed
يستطيع
in this
طلبهم ولا
world.
يأمر
Jurists
عنهم
preserve
أسمع
judgments about
نسبتهم إلى
food
الطريق
and women, and this is
ونسبة
necessary.
ونسبة
Theologians turn
الفقهاء
away
كنسبة
disputes and
عمال
arguments of
البروقراطيات
heretics so that their
والمصالح
corrupt
التجارية
ways
والكذب
not
والحرب
find sympathetic
ونسبة
ears.
المتكلمين
In
كنسبة
regard to the relationship between
مدرقة
jurists and
طريق الحج
theologians on the journey to
وحارسه إلى
God is
الحجاج
as this: the
فهؤلاء
jurists
من
can be
أضعف
compared to those
اجتماعاتهم
who
سلوك
build and
الطريق
provide
إلى الله
places
تعالى
of
فخطهم
refuge and facilities along the way of the pilgrimage to Mecca.
ثبات النفس
Theologians, on the other hand, can be compared to things spent on
والهدى
the journey of the
والإقبال
pilgrimage,
على
and they
الله
guard the
تعالى
pilgrims. If jurists and
وفضلهم على
theologians had
غيرهم كفضل
included
الشمس
journeying
على
to God
القمر وإن
among their
خسفوا
occupations by
فدرجتهم
turning
مربوطة
away from
بالله
worldliness, then their
والطبقة
degree
العليا
in
من علوم
comparison to
الله
others would be as the sun over the moon. However, they limit themselves to the
باختصار
occupation, their degree is much lower.
في ال-
So, in summary,
الله القسم الثالث من
the
هذه
third
العلوم
type of
اللي هي
these
علوم
knowledges is the knowledge
الحدود
of
والجنايات وما
the legal knowledges,
النكاح
what is related to
والبيئة وما
marriage
يتعلق به أيضا
and
الماديات والأموال
wealth and
والبيع
transactions
والشراء والشراء
and buying and selling, and
أيضا
also
فيقول
he
الإمام
says,
الغزالي
Imam Ghazali,
أن
that
القرآن
the Quran
فصل
has
وذكر
has
هذه
mentioned
الأحكام
these rulings
مجملة
all in one,
وجاءت السنة بشيء من
and
التفصيل
in
لكن
summary,
ممكن الإمام
but the
الغزالي يود
Sunnah has come to
على
give the
بعض
details.
ربما ما يتسع طب
But
فيقول لماذا انتشر
one
كتب
could
الفقه
ask, why are there
مثلا
so
نجد
many
في
books of fiqh?
كتب الفقه
Like,
في
for
المذاهب
instance, you would find in the
نجد
books of
مثلا شيء
fiqh,
يسمى متن
there is a matan, which is the
ثم
primary
شرح
text,
المتن
and then there's a commentary of that primary text,
ثم شرح
and then there
الشرح
is a commentary of the commentary of that text,
تمام
primary text.
ثم شيء
And
يسمى
then there's
الحواشي
a hawashi, which
ثم
is
تعليقات
another commentary, and then there's more comments on that.
يعني كلها في كتاب
So,
واحد
so all about the first primary text.
وشرح الشرح
The primary text is commentary, the commentary of the commentary, the hawashi, the branches.
مثلا في كتاب واحد
So it could be just one book, and from that one book, there's so many other books that have come out.
فالإمام
So
الغزالي
Imam
يقول
Ghazali is
أن
saying
سبب هذا
the reason
الانتشار
for this spread
أن بعض
is because some,
للأسف بعض
unfortunately, some of the
المتفيئين
the jurists,
أنه وجد له
they
صيت
found that they got
وشهرة
a lot of fame
عند الناس
amongst the people
فدخل في
because
هذا
of these knowledges. So they
وفقها
started going into these knowledges and started
يأتي أحدنا
expanding them more and more,
أو يأتي من
to the
الناس في
point
آخر الزمان
now people come
يرى
in this
بعض
day and
المسائل
age,
التي
they look in
نادرا ما تحدث
at these issues that are mentioned in these books that are so
فيختبرونها
rare, and then because they're so rare,
يكون على
they
قسم
reject the entire
قسم
book.
لسعة العلم
So
ما شاء الله
because
والحكمة مع
it's
ذلك
so
وقسم قد
there are two
يكون
types of
بسبب
people, two types of
يعني
jurists that
الجاه
cause this. One of them
والمال ما شاء
was, as we
الله
mentioned, those who
ورزق
get
وأن هذا
fame and
يعني
popularity and
ثراء
prestige
وهكذا
and
فيختلف.
position in society.
ولذلك
But then
الإمام
there's those
الغزالي
who
نجد
got divine openings and they got gifted
الإمام
knowledge.
الغزالي يعني فعلا
So Imam
الذي
Ghazali,
يتعامل معه
the one
لابد
who
أن
learns from
يكون
him, or
منتبه، هذا
he needs
إنسان
to pay
عبقري.
attention that this person is a pioneer
فالإمام
in what he's
الغزالي
coming, what he's talking about. He's
نجد صنف كتبا في الفقه،
he has
ولكن
himself authored
تعرفون
books
ما هي أسماؤها؟
in fiqh. And do you know the names of those books?
مثلا بأسماء عجيبة.
And he named them
الاسم يدل على
amazing names, and the name indicates
الترتيب. مثلا
towards
يسمى
his focus.
المختصر،
Like for instance, al-mukhtasar, the summary.
الخلاصة،
Al-khulasa, which is another word for summary.
الوجيز.
Al-wajiz, which is the concise.
نجد
So we find
أن كتبه
that his books
على هذا يعني
had this
يعطيك
kind, this
الخلاصة.
they would just give you the
الوجيز،
summary.
المستصفى،
The mustasfa, which is like
المستصفى،
the
إحياء علوم الدين،
Ihya Ulumuddin, the revival of the
كتاب
religious sciences, which is in 4 volumes.
بداية الهداية،
Beginning of guidance,
الأربعين الأصل، يعني
the 40
تجدونها
foundations
محددة
of religion.
ومعددة.
So you find these books with
جزاهم
precise
الله خيرا.
topics and precise
ونفعنا به
titles. May Allah reward him and may we
آمين
benefit
آمين
from him
اللهم
in
آمين.
both the abodes.
ثم
Ameen.
يقول
Then he says
أنه
that
هناك ما بين القصاص والوعاظ،
then there is
لأنه الإمام الغزالي كثر
there
في
is
زمنه
the
شو معنى
preachers and the
ما معنى
storytellers,
القصاص هو الذي
and these were referred to as qusas. And who were these qusas? They would sit with people who would sit with they would sit with people in masjid, and they would just narrate stories after stories after stories, and some of these stories would be fabricated, but they would just be doing that because so that they could hear from people the praise and people like screaming subhanallah, wow, or praising them. Or a wa'ad, which is a preacher who would use different methods or of presenting and speech just to stir the hearts of people, not because of what's inside his heart, but rather just he would raise his voice or lower his voice only to affect the hearts of people. And this is something needed. Like for instance, we know from Sayyidina Abdul Qadir Jalani's time that when he would speak, people would pass out. Some might even die. And this is what is also referred about Sayyidina Zannun al-Misri from Egypt, that, and it is said about him that Sayyidina Zannun al-Misri, who was from the people of Allah, that when he would speak and give his speeches, they would have they would count the funerals that would come out from his speech out of the intense fear that they would have of Allah, or the intense love they would have for Allah. So some would die out of fear of Allah, and some would die out of love for Allah. These people exist. So what can be seen or what can be understood from this is that Imam Ghazali is saying that if these jurists and if or these storytellers made their purpose journeying to Allah, or anyone, even the media people nowadays, or people who are on YouTube, or simple person, let's say a simple person, but his words affect people, and now he has a big following. Maybe the content of his speech is simple, but people are impressed by his delivery. Being impressed is one thing, and being affected by it is another thing. Most people nowadays just like things, but to have. So Imam Ghazali is saying that if these people were to add to their skill the journeying of Allah, so as if he's addressing the people who are famous in social media nowadays, saying, oh, you who has thousands of followers, hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of followers, Imam Ghazali is saying to you, sending you a message, that if you were to amend to your skill the way to Allah and distancing yourself from worldliness, then you would be like the sun or the moon. You who have followers, you have a presence on the internet, take the journey to Allah as well. Because those who listen to you from the millions, Allah Azza wa Jal sent them to you. It's a trust to you. Because a person cannot turn the hearts of people by himself. But if he finds people now turning towards you and liking you, then know that it has nothing to do with you. Don't say this is because my way is nice and I have a very beautiful way of saying things. No, that has got nothing to do with your way. It is Allah Azza wa Jal who brought them to you. And you will be judged. And maybe people might get happy and impressed. Oh, I have thousands and millions of followers. It's not about the numbers. You will be judged for them. So all those who have accounts in Twitter and Snapchat and any type of social media, you will be asked about your followers. For instance, 100,000 people followed you. What was the content you were delivering to them? What was the thing that you were benefiting them? This is actually a responsibility. We ask Allah that He enables us. So if they were to include in that journey to God among their occupations by turning away from worldliness, then their degree in comparison to others would be as the sun over the moon. So the moon, its light of the moon's light is from the sun. We won't be able to see the moon without the sun. However, if they limit themselves to just their occupation, their degree is much lower. Meaning, if they just do their work without wayfaring to Allah, then they are naturally in lowliness. They have no value before Allah Azza wa Jal. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal that He makes us benefit from these words, and inshallah we'll complete the rest of the lesson in the next lessons. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal, and Habib seeking apology from all of us that it was delayed because of some work-related because of his work, that he's not capable of fixing to the time. So if he delays because of a few 10 minutes, then that's because of his work. We ask Allah to bless the remaining days of Ramadan, and apologizing that He would maybe push the questions to the next lesson. They're asking about the Tahajjud prayer and Qiyamul Layl. Based on what is known, if Habib is praying, he will inform. Right now, today, tonight, there's nothing.
الله يبارك فيك أخت ليندا تفضلي. وعليكم السلام بخير محمد شبير. جزاكم خير جميعا. الله يبارك فيكم. نلتقي إن شاء الله غدا.
Inshallah we'll meet tomorrow.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.